Imagine a world where fortunes were not measured in gold or silver, but in small, glossy shells pulled from distant oceans. This is the story of cowrie shells, one of history's most unexpected global currencies, and a financial system that shaped West Africa for centuries. Today, we uncover how a tiny marine creature became the backbone of trade, wealth, and political power. Stay with us as we trace this remarkable journey across oceans, deserts, and kingdoms. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, because this is a forgotten chapter of financial history you won't find in modern textbooks. Cowrie shells, specifically the Monetaria moneta species, originated in the warm waters of the Indian and Pacific Oceans, far from West Africa. Yet by the 10th century, these shells had traveled thousands of miles through Arab, Swahili, and Indian trading networks. Merchants prized them for their uniformity, durability, and beauty, making them a perfect proto-currency. Long before European coins entered the continent, cowries circulated through bustling African markets, becoming a standard measure of value. Their arrival marked a turning point. West Africa was integrating into a vast global trading ecology long before the Atlantic world emerged. A financial revolution had begun. Cowries functioned as money not because of royal decree, but because societies organically adopted them. Their small size made them easy to count, store, and transport. Their hard, glossy surface made them nearly impossible to counterfeit. Most important, they were scarce locally but abundant abroad, creating a natural foundation for perceived value. Traders, chiefs, and states soon began pricing labor, goods, taxes, and fines in cowries. What emerged was a stable and accepted monetary system supported by custom, trust, and availability. This stability would later attract global merchants, especially Europeans, seeking a gateway into West Africa's lucrative trade networks. Cowrie money helped solidify political power across empires such as Oyo, Dahomey, Bornu, and Ashanti. Rulers collected taxes in cowries, stored vast reserves in palace vaults, and paid armies and administrators with them. These shells fueled government expansion, infrastructure projects, and military campaigns. Market women, merchants, and farmers also relied on cowries to fix prices and negotiate trade. As West African states grew increasingly monetized, cowries became a symbol of wealth and order. Their presence strengthened local economies and gave rulers an unprecedented ability to project power across territorial borders. Cowries were no longer shells, they were statecraft. A surprising economic synergy emerged. West African gold, which medieval Europe desperately needed, flowed north through Saharan caravans, while cowrie shells flowed in from the east via Indian Ocean traders. This created a dual currency environment that enriched African states. Gold financed long-distance diplomacy and luxury imports, cowries drove everyday market activity. The coexistence of these two forms of money made West Africa one of the most financially sophisticated regions of the medieval world. European chroniclers, astonished by this economic complexity, often misunderstood it, yet African merchants balanced these currencies with a precision that rivaled European financial centers. By the 16th century, European powers recognized cowries' economic influence and sought to control supply. The Portuguese began importing massive quantities from the Maldives, soon followed by the Dutch, French, and British. European ships filled their hulls with millions of shells, treating them like minted coins destined for West African markets. These shells became tools of negotiation, manipulation, and ultimately domination. By flooding regions with cowries, Europeans could alter prices, destabilize economies, and gain bargaining power. Cowrie shells, once symbols of African autonomy, were becoming instruments of global financial engineering, setting the stage for profound economic consequences. As European ships increased cowrie imports, something unprecedented happened: inflation. What had once been scarce and valuable became more plentiful, causing prices to fluctuate wildly. Goods that once cost a few hundred shells now demanded thousands. African rulers struggled to protect their monetary systems, even imposing restrictions on how many cowries could enter their territories. But the tide was too strong. The more Europeans profited from West African trade, the more shells they unleashed. This inflation eroded purchasing power, strained social relations, and reshaped financial expectations. This was one of history's earliest examples of a global inflationary crisis. One of the darkest chapters of cowrie history unfolded during the transatlantic slave trade. Europeans used cowries to purchase captives from African intermediaries, turning shells into a deadly commodity linked to human suffering. Prices for enslaved individuals were sometimes fixed in cowries, with tens of thousands exchanged per transaction. This created a devastating monetary loop. Europeans brought cowries, acquired captives, shipped them across the Atlantic, and returned with commodities bought by slave labor. Cowries, once symbols of community exchange, became intertwined with exploitation. The financialization of human lives marked a tragic shift in their historical significance. Despite imperial pressures, cowries continued to shape everyday life. They were used for marriage payments, initiation ceremonies, and sacred rituals. Wealthy families displayed cowrie-covered garments, stools, and jewelry as markers of prestige. Women often accumulated cowries as personal wealth, granting them financial influence and independence. The shells became more than currency; they evolved into cultural tokens woven into identity, faith, and aesthetics. For many West Africans, cowries symbolized continuity amid economic upheaval. Even as foreign powers manipulated supply, cowries retained deep cultural resonance. They were threads connecting spiritual practice, social hierarchy, and financial systems in profound ways. West Africa developed sophisticated financial systems long before European-style banks appeared. Market guilds and merchant associations managed credit, loans, and savings using cowries as the unit of account. Debts were recorded in strings of shells tied in coded patterns. Lenders enforced repayment through kinship and reputation. These informal systems functioned with remarkable efficiency. They supported local entrepreneurship, long-distance trade, and community welfare. In many regions, these systems proved more trustworthy than colonial institutions introduced later. African financial innovation, rooted in cowrie money, demonstrates a legacy of monetary intelligence often erased or ignored in mainstream economic histories. By the late 19th century, European colonial governments sought to replace cowries with coins and paper currency. They issued decrees banning cowries as legal tender, imposed taxes payable only in colonial currency, and confiscated shell reserves from rulers and merchants. The goal was clear: control the economy by controlling the money supply. Colonial officers dismissed cowries as primitive, ignoring centuries of financial stability. As new currencies spread, cowrie-based systems unraveled, disrupting local markets and livelihoods. What had once been a vibrant indigenous monetary world was dismantled to centralize colonial power and extract wealth from African societies. In some regions, cowries persisted well into the early 20th century, especially in rural areas where colonial currency was scarce or distrusted. Elders still recall buying food, cloth, or livestock with strings of cowries carefully counted by hand. These final transactions represent the closing chapter of a millennium-long monetary tradition. Over time, cowries faded from circulation, surviving only in ceremonies, art, and memory. Yet their endurance reveals something striking: African financial systems were not easily erased. Even under colonial pressure, communities held onto their monetary heritage as long as possible, honoring the shells that once defined economic life. Cowries expose a truth too often overlooked. African societies created complex, adaptive, and resilient financial systems that predated and rivaled European institutions. These shells supported taxation, commerce, governance, and long-distance trade for 1,000 years. They reveal an Africa deeply connected to global commerce, long before colonialism. Understanding cowrie money dismantles stereotypes about pre-colonial economies and highlights indigenous innovation. It reminds us that financial systems are not only built from metal and paper but from trust, culture, and the shared imagination of communities. In cowries, we see a legacy of African economic brilliance that still deserves recognition. Cowries may have vanished from everyday transactions, but their legacy echoes in modern currencies. Their rise shows how value can be constructed, circulated, manipulated, and weaponized. Their fall illustrates how external powers disrupt monetary ecosystems for profit. Today's financial crises, inflation cycles, and currency politics mirror patterns first seen in the cowrie economy centuries ago. Understanding this history isn't nostalgia, it's insight. Cowries remind us that money's true nature is fragile, shaped by supply, perception, and power. Their story is a global lesson in the economics of trust, scarcity, and political control. As we step back from this journey across oceans, kingdoms, and markets, one thing becomes clear. Cowrie shells were more than currency, they were the pulse of a region, the lifeblood of empires, and a mirror of global power. Their story challenges us to rethink what money truly is and how financial systems are shaped by human choices. If this forgotten chapter of history opened your eyes, remember to like, subscribe, and share. Join us as we continue exploring the financial stories that built, and sometimes broke, the world. History is not just written in books. It is written in currency.